Welcome to the Manifestation and Money podcast, Anna. Share with the listeners just who you are and what your story is.
Yeah, I'm Anna Cantwell, and I am a three-time spiritual entrepreneur. I used to be a high school English teacher turned coach and hypnotherapist. I also DJ and make music because I'm someone who just loves to do a lot of things and doesn't ever want to limit herself in what I can do. And one of my biggest struggles in my life was money. And I love that y'all are bringing manifestation and money together because I know it's one of the things for folks that causes the most stress. No one's their best self, no one's their brightest, most authentic self when they are stressed about money. And I know because I was that person. I was a super broke high school English teacher getting sick all the time, just really, really struggling in all of the ways. I had no creative energy. I was working all the time. I was the definition of pouring from an empty cup. And that definitely showed up in my finances as well. And I knew I had to make a big change in my life. And I decided to move out to LA, become a yoga and meditation teacher, and completely change how I was living. But going from Houston, Texas to Los Angeles was definitely a big financial jump for me. And at that time, I think my rent tripled, and then I was starting my own business. I was working all kinds of jobs to make it work. I was a tutor. I was working the front desk at the yoga studio. I was teaching 20 yoga classes a week. And it all came to a head one day when I realized I was not going to be able to pay my rent. And that was my moment. That was my big come to Jesus moment. And I had been learning about manifestation. My life and opportunities had been opening up in so many magical ways. Like moving to LA and the apartment, and all of these layers had been falling into place in such a synchronistic way. But money was the last big piece that I was still really struggling with. And I got a little mini loan from my parents, much to my deep embarrassment and shame. I paid my rent, I paid it back, and then I made a promise to myself that I was going to learn everything there is to learn about money, finances, manifesting, magic, and all sides of it. Everything from like Ramit Sethi to Amanda Francis. I was going to learn it all. And yeah, that really started me on my journey. And what I found is that there are a lot of amazing teachers out there, but there are not that many teachers who are still in the middle. It's a lot of people who are already millionaires, already multimillionaires, giving everyone else their great advice, which is beautiful. But there is a theory called the zone of proximal development, which shows that when you're learning from someone who's too far ahead of you, it actually can set you back. You start to disidentify yourself with that person. So, in the sea of, Bentleys and trips to San Tropez, I really wanted to carve a space for people who were still learning how to get their money mindset going, learning how to receive, working on their manifestation skills, who maybe weren't quite at the millionaire status yet, but were seeing some real traction and growth, and it was making a huge difference in their life because that's what was happening for me. When I started to make great money, doing what I love, making six figures, working 15 hours a week, I couldn't believe how many ripples that had in my life. It made everything better. And I was like, if I could just give this feeling to people, it could really help them.
Mm-hmm. help them in huge ways. And that's, I think, where we want to take the conversation today. Because listening to your story, I can hear you went to a point where you were grinding it out, working multiple jobs, and still unable to pay your rent. It's not for lack of effort there. So, how can you bring the ease and the play? And what did you say there? Learn to receive. Like, how does someone learn to receive, and how does that play into manifestation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what I've seen, because I work with a lot of women, and not exclusively women, but we are and have been sort of trained to, like you said, hustle really hard and grind it out. But the truth is that if it were just about hard work, the people who would be super rich would be the teachers and the nurses and the construction workers. So clearly, it's not just about that, right? Effort and intention matters, but what I started to see was women who were so in their masculine, really stressed out, and doing this kind of frantic manifesting and like kind of like, let's just force this to happen by sheer will. And that sometimes it worked, but they got to the finish line or they got to the destination and they were burnt out or they didn't feel the way that they thought they would feel when they got the thing that they wanted, when they got the promotion or when they received the check. I decided I wanted to be the voice of play and ease and fun because I worked with millionaires in Beverly Hills, in LA, who had all of the money, the cars and the driveway, the mansion, the accolades, even the family. And they were still so sad and lonely, and they were still stressed about money. And I was like, that is not the way to do it.
No kidding. That just goes to show you that the grass isn't always greener. You could have all those things, but you could still have the same kind of worries that the person who doesn't have anything has.
Exactly. What if we actually had fun along the way and didn't fall into the trap of a lot of people in the spiritual community, it's just getting so serious. And I don't know if you can tell by what I have going on over here, but we try not to take things so seriously. It's really easy to, especially with something so charged as money, to get wrapped up in the shame spirals, the debt, the healing the deep stories and money wounds. And it's not that those things aren't important because I definitely believe in those, and I do that work with my clients. It's just that when I ran a 8-day little email challenge called Hot Money Summer this past summer. And the goal was to make it as playful and fun as possible. And this was like a little $11 offer. The results that I saw from that, from people remembering to have money, seeing it as a game again, remembering to have fun and joy with it, were insane. We're talking investors into their company. We're talking 175K job offers, just like falling out of nowhere, double than that person had ever made of a salary in their life. Things like truly falling out of the sky. And so I love to focus on receiving because it's not all about making money. Making money is great, and receiving opens you up to so much more fun and magic. I know we've all had a moment where we helped someone in need or we helped out a friend when they were struggling, and how that giving makes you feel amazing. Well, the receiving also feels great too. And we can keep the energy really magnetic and juicy when we feel amazing about giving and generous, because that's true abundance. And then also we're ready to receive. And it could be money, it could be gifts, heartfelt gifts, it could be prizes. I've never met anyone who's mad at winning a prize. Like, it brings you to this joyful, giddy place doing giveaways. So People, when they're in this energy, they start to feel the frequency of how they want money to make them feel instead of just grinding it out for the next dollar that they had to earn.
Hmm. That's neat to connect the dots like that. And when you say when you were doing this hot money summer, were you giving people challenges to receive or were you giving them challenges? Can you give us an example of something that you would have done during that email challenge to spark something?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first day we do a little work on hot money bummers. You take the things that you're annoyed about, right? The things that you're kind of pissed off about, and you write them down and you clear them. And you're like, that was a bummer that this happened. That was a bummer that I got this late fee on something, or that was a bummer that this didn't work out. And then you shift it to a little nod to the Beach Boys. Wouldn't it be nice if this thing came through? Wouldn't it be nice if that unexpected, you know, car repair was totally covered? Or wouldn't it be nice if I was treated to this thing today? And start to transmute that negative energy into the space of possibility and playfulness. Another one I love is, what's the funnest way that you can describe how you make money currently? And I always use the example of when I was a nanny, I literally got paid. Yes, there was a kid that I was in charge of, but I literally got paid to sit at the country club and tan and watch him go up and down the slide a million times. And that's what I got paid to do. And isn't that cool?
And doesn't that sound easy?
So easy. And so then you can shift into describing, well, what would be the funnest way I can think of that I would want to make money that I haven't made money yet? Right. And for some people, I know, getting paid to exist. I had a friend who her company is going under, but her job is safe for the next year, and there's not a lot of work to do. And she's just getting her salary, and there's just not really work to do, and she's getting paid to exist. I would love to hear for you, what's the funnest way you can describe how you've made money?
First off, I love this idea because it makes you go into that playful spin. Well, I'm a landlord too, so I feel like there's often months where I don't really have to do anything. There was one month where I literally sent a tenant a birthday card. I feel like that was a pretty fun month to make money and just send them a birthday gift in return. So that one comes to mind.
I love that. Also, best landlord ever.
Yeah.
It just opens up so much space. And when we're in scarcity, what's happening literally in our brain, right? If we're complaining about things, our hippocampus, the space of our brain that helps us solve problems, is physically deteriorating when we complain. So it's actually eroding our ability to solve whatever problem is happening. And then when we start getting in this playful space, we have all these new creative ideas. I was talking to a friend of mine who is an amazing money gal, certified financial planner. We were having a cool conversation about money, and I was asking her, isn't it so interesting how when we are in scarcity, we just don't think of the things sitting around that we could sell, or the new offer that might blow up our business. Or I had a client who forgot that she had a retirement account from an old job and just had 7 grand sitting there that she totally forgot about, that was untapped. Meanwhile, she's struggling and thinking it's really, life is hard, but she has that awaiting her. So it's really amazing to see when we open up to the possibility that the abundance is already there. And I promise you, if you start building the evidence and looking for it, it will show itself.
What are some of your fun, playful ways to get clients to tap into seeing the abundance in their lives if they currently have their blinders up?
Oh, absolutely. I have a little 6-day challenge in my course, Abundance Mindset Magic. That's, if you just cannot see where the money is right now, let's find it. And it's really the simplest ways. One I see for a lot of people is I know, especially people listening to this podcast, you have courses, you have solid gold wisdom and ideas that you haven't touched maybe ever or in years. Go mine some of that knowledge that's there, that's waiting for you. That's one of my favorites. Another one that is really fun, especially if you like to spend money on clothes like I do, is do a clothing swap with your friends. You can get a whole new part of your wardrobe just by exchanging things. I went to one in the last couple of months and I thought, well, everyone's just going to bring the stuff they don't want and it's not going to be very good. And it was not that way at all. It's so cool to see something that just doesn't work for you anymore. Maybe it doesn't fit. Maybe it just doesn't fit this season of your life. And I got so much amazing stuff. And then I got to circulate the energy because money wants to be circulated, right? I got to circulate the energy that was staying stagnant in my closet.
Yeah, I love that. My friends and I like to do that. And it makes me think that we haven't done one in a few years. And it's just grown. It started off with clothing and accessories. And then we're like, anything goes. Majority of us have children now. So we were bringing kid stuff, we're bringing kitchen items, we're bringing bath products that we've either haven't opened or tried once or twice, and they just weren't the right scent for us or whatever. And it was so much fun.
It feels like Christmas morning, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then there's something about circulating the energy that's not being used, right?
Mhm.
So we get really stuck, especially in America, with things that we're not using. They fill up the garage or what have you, things that aren't opened. And moving that energy also creates room for new energy to come in.
I 100% agree with that. And then I don't know if you do the same at the end of your swaps, anything excess, we went and donated to like women's shelters and stuff. So then you're giving back again. You have already had gotten that stuff out of your house. So it wasn't like a grind. Like you were excited to go do the swap part. So you were putting a bunch of cool stuff together for the swap. And at the end, you got to donate it. And then you go home and yes, there's this new space for something else. You fill half of it back up with your new stuff, but it's new and exciting.
Yeah. Yes, you get some of it back. But that's the beautiful giving and receiving
Mhm.
flow, right? And it's understanding that giving is just as sacred as receiving. And the way we receive anything, right, is probably the way we receive money. The way you receive one thing is the way you receive everything. So if when you get compliments, you're not receiving them, and it can be just as simple as saying, I received that, right?
Mhm.
Thank you. I received that. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. That is going to translate to your money as well. And that's where I see women who are struggling with money, who they're having a hard time receiving anything, receiving help, receiving pleasure, receiving support in their families. And there's something about the feeling of, I earned this dollar or I worked for this. Of course, that's satisfying and beautiful. And also, I believe that we're leaving a lot of money on the table if we don't open ourselves up to the full possibility of receiving.
I'm glad you touched on compliments in there because I know for me, that is a hard thing for me for whatever reason. My husband will be like, "Oh, that shirt looks really cute." And like, "Oh, it's totally tugging at my neck or whatever." I can't just say thank you. I find some roundabout way to deflect the compliment, and I'm working on it because this popped up in the last manifestation playground group that we did. And I think maybe it's a guy thing too, but as women especially, so our focus was how we could go out and just learn to say thank you for a week. And the snowball effect, the ripple effect that that had in our lives, just by no matter what somebody gave us a compliment for, we had to say thank you. We didn't have to attach anything past the thank you. We just had to say thank you. And the feedback after we met back up after that group was insane just by saying thank you for compliments.
So cool. No disclaimers, right? No, nothing.
Nothing.
Is very connected. Another Hot Money Summer challenge that I had folks do during that is anytime with, of course, your discernment, someone offers you help. How many times are we, lugging our groceries in all our hands? It's like cutting off our circulation of our fingers. And someone says, "Do you need some help with that?" And we say, "We're good. We got it." Right? Challenging yourself to accept that help, even if you don't need it. And even if you're a strong, independent woman, allowing that extra support in can really shift your connection to also receiving money.
Yeah, I believe that so much. And seeing the validation of that is really cool. I want to take a moment here to segue over to your book because I don't want to skip that. I know it's new, I know it's exciting. So I would love for you to share with the listeners what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been teaching on money since 2020, and I had a course that was called Abundance Mindset Mastery. And it was very much like school, right? And a little more masculine, mastery. And I was on a plane where we have all our best revelations. And I saw the cover of this book, but instead of mastery, it was abundance mindset magic. And I knew that it had to come through. And I started to see all of the ways in which us as a spiritual community and a manifesting community, we just made another job for ourselves. We made another task for ourselves. And I wanted to make a beach read of money mindset that taps you into fun exercises, being in your feminine energy, and also the magic that's there because logic is not going to get you to magic, right? And I think that we all want a little more magic, a little more sparkle in our lives, especially with something so charged as money. So, this is my book. It is Abundance Mindset Magic, the fun, feminine, and magical way to manifest money and open yourself to receive. It's available right now all the places, Barnes& and Noble, Amazon. I have a link to my personal bookshop as well. And I was just thumbing through it last night, feeling really excited and proud. And it just has so many fun stories in it. I love to teach through stories. I'm definitely spilling all of my crazy money tea, like when I accidentally almost got sucked into a Ponzi scheme in Vegas and narrowly dodged that, and just a lot of the things I've learned on my money journey, as well as some of the practical stuff taught in a really fun and simple way. Because the powers that be want money to feel complicated and difficult, and it just doesn't have to be that way.
It doesn't have to be that way. And that's why we're having more conversations like this. And I'll be sure to link all that in the show notes, as well as where people can reach out and connect with you. But before I let you go, I just have to ask, what is your biggest piece of advice for people to go out and create a life they love?
Make sure that it's your life, the life that you want. Don't go borrowing other people's dreams and desires. You get to make a life that is perfectly tailored to you and your dreams. So spend that time to really connect with the deepest desires of your soul. And that is when it becomes inevitable.
That is the perfect permission slip for people to go out and the perfect note to end this on today. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today, Anna.
Well, thank you so much, Jen, for having me.